Good evening and welcome. On behalf of curatorial collective What, How and For Whom, VHV, first of all I would like to thank Edith Rooshaus, Marcel and Edith, thank you so much, and also your team for this amazing collaboration. And of course artist and director Želimir Žilnik, as well as to Sarita Matijević, producer, who were our partners on that project. So, the aim of the conversation today is in a way to transfer some of the long talks that we had with Želimir Žilnik and Sarita in past year and a half. It's been a very exciting journey, and I will just in very short notice introduce our guest, Želimir Žilnik. I'm sure that many of you who've been in the exhibition yesterday or are already familiar with his work know much about his very prolific filmography and work. But just for those who are not maybe so familiar, who are encountering his work for the very first time, I would say that Želimir Žilnik started to work in late 60s, early 70s, in extremely lively, intellectual and amateur scene in Yugoslavia. And from early on, his films got international attention. For his first feature film from 1969, Early Works, he got Golden Bear at Berlin International Film Festival. At the same time, this particular film, but also some films after, and films by other authors of that period, stirred lots of political turmoil. So, after encountering the political opposition in Yugoslavia, and without the possibility to continue his work, after his film Freedom or Cartoons was censored, Želimir left for Germany in 1974, where he did many interesting independent films. And just as one note to illustrate that this period was particularly rich and important for his career, is that in 1975 in Oberhausen Film Festival he was representing Germany with 5 films. And this kind of prolific production and abundance of ideas that are often very radically pursued is something that has been following Želimir's works for 5 decades, and it is more than 50 films he did. And of course, today we will not be able to reflect on all of them or on his artistic career in totality. The idea is that we reflect on different periods, on different films, but we will also follow a certain line of interest that we as curators noticed in Želimir's work. First of all, I must say that we've been actually collaborating for some time yet. It is not for the first time that we work together, although this collaboration is very specific because before we did not embark on this journey of making an exhibition, and also within it we did new commission, new work that is visible among other works. Also, apart from this very extensive and intensive process of working together, I must say that as many other curators, especially from former Yugoslavia, not only curators but artists, philosophers, we were all deeply influenced and inspired by Želimir's work for many different reasons. And one of them, it has to do with this consistent and fearless radical position. And it's all about not only doing films politically, but also pushing these limits and asking these very, I would say, crucial questions about artistic autonomy and political engagement at the same time. And fiercely independent, yet Želimir's works was never isolated in this ivory tower of neutrality. On the contrary. So I would like to start this conversation with actually reference to the exhibition title. The title of the exhibition is Shadow Citizens, and it is a reference to his lifelong focus on invisible, suppressed, underrepresented, and very often misrepresented members of society. As a concept, shadow citizens is related to this kind of political engagement we found in Želimir's works that has to do with amateur politics. So it is very much against this professionalization, both in politics and in artistic practice. And it's all about this kind of non-normative knowledge that can also push usual understanding of the political role of us as cultural workers, but also as citizens. So to start with, I'd like to ask you, because this is like the title and the main concept of the exhibition, what is your take on the proposal that came from the side of curators?
Good afternoon, thank you for coming. We are here only 3 days, but we are having excellent time in your nice city. And of course, we also must say, Sarita and I, when we came, we have been really sort of surprised how the Kunsthaus and curators team have found really very unique, interesting and original way of presenting films in a gallery that is a step sort of different than normal retrospectives, and therefore for me being here is a very pleasant moment in my work. So I thank you all. About this question, what can I answer is actually some sort of very simple remembering on my beginning. You see, when we in 60s who have been interested in films have been start following even repertoire in that time Yugoslav cinema, we have been watching a lot of new productions both in the West and in East, as Yugoslavia was a bit different than other state socialistic countries. It was open, and we not only could travel and could trade with the West, we also could have very new book translated magazines, but also very new films. So very early, I and my generation, beside great names of cinematography in that years, and that was of course from Fellini to Bergman and to Godard, and also all American directors, we could also see something what was a new trend in documentary film. That was this group which was called Cinema Verite filmmakers, who have been also choosing the topic of destiny and the people who are on the edge of societies, you see. And that was maybe the first time when I myself felt, look, this simple and low budget production is something what is not far away of our possibilities. Because when you see, I mean, anything big, even by Buñuel or Bergman, you would think, how can I reach to that level from this excellent artists to this tremendous scenography of some Spanish or Italian cities or some American desert. But I remember the cinema verite films have been, for me, just something what I thought, wow, it's not so unimaginable to try something yourself. And then in the same time, we had opportunity to watch also in art houses the work of Frederick Wiseman, that is American film director, whose method is not much different than mine, although he's earlier, so I can say that maybe some of his approaches I embrace, you see. He was doing films on the topic, for instance, not only everyday pieces of everyday life, but also this connection between society, institutions, and the humans who are not having any positional powers, but who are treated as a sort of modest strata or class. So those films I liked very much. And then thinking of this, where I found something what is in terms of taste, in terms of feeling, in terms of emotions, similar with this what I myself feel. I was thinking what are those contradictions in society where we live. We lived in state socialism, which is of course based on all those promises, you see. Like one of the first promises that state socialism will finally make equal society where the working people would have not only like good possibility to survive, but would be like the main sort of people who are influencing the running of the country itself. So it is a great promise, which is of course in the sense different than the capitalistic one. Capitalistic one is we have a free market and we should start compete, and of course we will have, all of us have a chance to earn the money and to start becoming powerful. This socialistic promise was about this sort of equality and humanistic approach, but we have seen in reality that there are some very sharp differences in the position in the society of actually, let us say, ruling apparatchik on one side, then the peasants and workers, who are having, of course, the possibility in state socialism to enter the school and to get some employment, but who are always, I would say, the subject, who are much more present in proclamation and paroles than in really empowerment what they had. So therefore, when I entered cinematography, professional one, that was in the middle of 60s, I started for the first time to follow what is happening in the cinema of Yugoslavia, where I found, what I didn't know before, very strong documentary film punkts or schools or productions. In Sarajevo, excellent one, in Zagreb, another one very strong, in Belgrade, also very strong, which have been also internationally well known. And in the city where I live, in Novi Sad, just in that time was formed the Neoplanta Film, also one documentary film production, where I approached with few of my ideas. The films which we produced in 66, 67, 68, they are present here. Surprisingly, the production house was open to give me technique, in that time very complicated technique, 35mm cameras, and negative, and a lot of light and so on. So that is how I started. But the cinematography in which I have started was already quite developed in terms that we have had also this outdoor cinematography, then we have had also some of these socialistic propaganda films, but in our country most of them have been dedicated to the Second World legacy and this anti-fascistic struggle. And then we had a third of cinematography which was engaged in international co-productions. So there was a huge international co-productions in Yugoslavia, for instance. All the films which German producers made based on Karl May stories, that is these Vinettu films, they have been filmed in Yugoslavia, all of them, you see. That means when we enter the studios, we have seen all those Indians, horses, then the people making the wardrobe, costumes and everything. So infrastructure was very strong. Then there was another German production, Alfred Bauer was his name, from Hamburg, who was making Nibelungen story in the middle of Belgrade. So when I entered our studio, so a huge piece of land, like from here to this big square, that was this scenography for Nibelungen, you see. So that was also one aspect which shows how the atmosphere was quite open. That means that our critical films, they have not been like the most discussed film in media and in the country. There was some open space for them. And of course, I was mostly interested in something what I have found, what I have come to the conclusion very early, how the film is very excellent, like key, and filming is very excellent key to open some doors and some corners of society you are interested in, and you, without the film, would not be sort of invited or free to enter in those things, you see. So when I went to see how my generation of peasants are living, who are not in the cities and who are not embraced with these socialistic factories and a socialistic system of self-management, which was again one promise, but also a piece of that promise in realization. Good was that I was coming with film crew with big camera, and the peasant says, we are not filmed, we will show you, and we are proud to show you how we live and so on. So of course, everything, when you ask the filmmakers, everything depends how do they feel, how do they see, and where do they direct the camera. And making the film, it is not as controlled as writing the text. In writing the text, you can completely be in control of every comma and every expression. In making of the film, you have also to give the space to the people who are in front of the camera and who are as important as for old painter, the colors and the canvases, you see. So the whole rhythm of the film and the visual aspect of it, it depends on your taste how to choose the participant. And anyhow, what I didn't know in the beginning, and I didn't have any plan, I didn't know that this, I would say, my direct facing some of the topic which I thought does not exist enough in our debates and reflexing, then that produce very quickly in 2, 3, 4 years, 5, 6 first documentaries film, who have been a bit like provocative. Some people like them, some people hate them very much. Then there was also discussion about them. Then some festivals, also domestic festivals, have received that and awarded. And then there was, in that time, one documentary film festival, which was the the most important in the world. That was Oberhausen Film Festival. Why? Because, first of all, the Oberhausen Film Festival was the only one which was open both to the Eastern Europe and Western Europe. So that was a place where we have seen, for instance, this great new director, not new, in that time, these modern, interesting directors like, for instance, Cubanese cinematography, South American cinematography, men whose name is Santiago Alvarez, who was in one things very good. Then also we have seen Polish, extremely interesting and good documentary films, Russians, or in that time Soviet, then Hungarians. So it was a very vibrant scene. And I was lucky. I was simply that generation who entered a very, I would say, rich moment of cinematography. But, you know, living in state socialism, that is actually the living in one system which has all this energy to make progress, changes and steps in society, but in the same time the society is fragile. One-party system, you don't have parliamentarism, you don't have open discussions. That for us artists was very good, because the most of controversial discussions in the society have been put in this sort of context of art, you see, literature, film, theater. So that is why they told us you are making political cinema. But actually, we have been running of this direct political engagement, what means meetings, speeches, parolas, and so on. So we thought, no, we are doing something else. We are just making human.
Actually, Shadow Citizens entered your filmmaking in a way when you started analytically observe class relations in socialist Yugoslavia, because you thematized the topics of unemployed, of homeless, of kids who are Roma kids who are living in unbearable conditions, and those topics and situations were not officially acknowledged or taken care of.
Yeah, that is always the situation when you have the societies which are based on some sort of very strict concepts. Without strong Catholicism, you see, and role of the church, you would not have Italian neorealism, because neorealism is nothing else but questioning what of those church promises are human and working, and what of those promises are just manipulation, you see. So that is also with these Eastern cinematographers of Poland, Hungary, and Soviet, you see. If you would not have this situation in society that actually they are so much proclaiming these new goals on one side and new results, you would never have, for instance, these marvelous Russian films about tradition of Christianity, you see, like you have had they have been made in 70s, late 70s. So that is the situation. And of course, what we did not know, and nobody knew, how these socialistic societies, even the state socialism was somehow covering half of a planet, you see, from Adriatic Sea to the Atlantic Ocean, to the borders of China. So that was first, maybe half of the population have lived in state socialism, and many new liberated countries in Asia and Africa, they claim that they are also going to embrace that system. But we did not know that the system is also so fragile. So even in '69, in the middle of sort of lot of hopes, you see, you had the first earthquake of state socialism, which for my generation was bigger and more significant than falling of Berlin Wall. That was occupation of Czechoslovakia by the troops of Warsaw Pact, and Soviet tanks have a role in Prague, trying just to put away this so-called socialism with human face, which leaders of Czechoslovakia wanted to install. That was this group around Dubček. Of course, that was not the first so aggressive, I would say, act of the violence and dictatorship. You have had also before these German examples, I think it was in '53, and you had also before Hungarian example in '56, which have been also brutal. But in that time there was even some excuse, because it was close to the Second World War, and still the countries have not been reconstructed. But now in 68, 68, summer of 68, when the tanks rolled in the state socialism, all of us, first of all, had above our head a big question mark. What is going to happen with this type of society? Can it survive? You see, so some of my films, in that moment, I actually tried, in some of the films, I tried to reflect that question. For instance, in short film about demonstration of students in Belgrade, and then in early works. But what we also did not know, that many of Yugoslav films made till 69 and 70s, where my films have not been in front of the most critical one or the best films, but some other, all the directors made even more films, like Živojin Pavlović, Dušan Makavejev, Aleksandar Petrović, Krsto Papić, and the others. We did not know that they will be in after they have been already shown in the country, awarded, that they will be proclaimed as anti-socialistic films. That we did not know, but that happens. And that is the moment when you say, when you mentioned that these, let us say, the terms of black wave was formed. It is something what the party functionaries, the bureaucrats, just invented to accuse us. They said, you filmmakers, you are misusing the freedom in socialism to make the films by watching our society through the eyes, through your eyes, through the black glasses on your eyes. So for us filmmakers, that was sort of comic. I mean, we have been mocking that because it was so stupid, but that is how it happens. And then the reaction of bureaucracy was much more direct. So the films have been withdrawn from distribution. We have lost the possibility to continue to work and so on. So we understood actually how on one side you have had some hoping that this debate will go on and the changes will somehow make society more democratic orientated, but at the same time came this dogmatic wave, and that also brought me to some sort of conclusion that I should try to as much as possible find a way how to make the films independent without being relying on the state companies for the technique, or for laboratories, and for funding. So I somehow myself concluded, and it is not because that was the only choice. Some other people have concluded something else. Some other people went in maybe finding the way how to bridge these problems and continue with some films, let us say, on new ideological premises. But I felt comfortable with that also because I have seen how actually this sort of parts of society who are politically powerful, how they are very eager to change the rhetoric over the night. So some of the people who have been in commission, who have been signing the very positive critic in newspapers and reviews about our films, they start accusing us that they are enemy of the people and so on. And when the politicians start making restrictions, there was no one who opposed the politicians. In that moment, I made this film, which is called Black Film, just to, I would say, mock this new label we got, and then also to show directly and concrete what is the power of documentary film and magnetism, but in the same time, what is the weakness of it? As when you are making the pieces of art, you are out of actually sphere that you are changing the society. You can initiate some debate, you can maybe spread some of solidarity, feeling of solidarity, you can of course provoke the discussions, but you cannot change the reality, especially as this reality, what we are filming, it is captured on your material, so material is not going to be changed to become more humanistic as it lays on a shelf, you see.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Želimir, and please one applause for Želimir.